Cristopher Columbus, the man who got rejected by every king in Europe and accidentally changed the world. Imagine trying to convince the most powerful monarchs in Europe to fund your wild idea only to be ghosted, rejected, and laughed out of the room for 7 years straight. That was Cristopher Columbus before 1492, the man who just wouldn't take no for an answer, even when everyone told him his math was garbage. It's the late 1480s. Europe smells of ambition, spices, and occasionally unwashed sailors. Columbus is in his late 30s, living in Spain, but originally from Genoa, Italy, a city famous for ships, trade, and men with very confident mustaches. Columbus had one big idea: sail west to reach Asia faster. He thought the world was smaller than everyone said, about 25% smaller. Actually, which would have been great, if he weren't completely wrong. But hey, confidence counts. So, Columbus starts shopping his idea around. He tries Portugal first. King John II listens politely, then sends Columbus away with a royal thanks, but no thanks. Portugal already had its star explorer Bartolomeu Dias rounding Africa, so they didn't need some Italian guy claiming he could hit Japan by accident. Rejection number 1. Okay, Columbus packs up, moves to Spain, and tries again. He meets Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, Spain's royal power couple. Problem is, in the late 1480s, they're busy fighting the final battles of the Reconquista, kicking the last Muslim kingdom, Granada, out of Spain. So when Columbus pitches his sail west, get rich idea, they basically say, "Cool story, Chris. Call us when we're not at war." Now, this is where the last 3 years before 1492 get wild. From 1489 to 1492, Columbus is basically the world's most persistent job applicant. He lives off small royal stipends and the kindness of random nobles, always one step away from broke. He keeps sending proposals, maps, and letters to anyone who'll listen: nobles, monks, scholars, even a few monks who didn't ask. In 1490, the Royal Council reviews his plan again and says, "Nope, too risky." The math doesn't add up. Columbus storms off dramatically, probably shouting something like, "Someday you'll all see," and heads for France to pitch King Charles VIII. But here's where fate and one very persuasive friar step in. At the monastery of La Rabida, Columbus crashes with a Franciscan friar named Juan Perez. Perez happens to have Queen Isabella's ear literally. He was her former confessor. Columbus explains his dream one more time, with that same mix of charisma, desperation, and wildly bad geography. Perez is moved. He writes to the Queen himself, saying, "Majesty, maybe hear the guy out one more time." Isabella agrees, partly because Spain finally wins the war in January 1492, and she's in a good mood. Granada has fallen. The treasury is stretched thin, but hey, maybe new trade routes could refill it. So Columbus is summoned again. This time, he negotiates hard. He demands titles: Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Viceroy of any lands he discovers, and this is real, 10% of all the profits. The Royal Council nearly faints. This man wants to be rich before he even sails. But then, an unlikely hero appears: Luis de Santango, the royal treasurer. He convinces Isabella that funding one man's wild dream costs less than 1 month of war. She agrees finally and offers ships and men. Columbus writes in his journal that on April 17, 1492, "Their Highnesses gave me everything I asked for." What he doesn't write: he spent the next few months chasing ships and sailors who didn't want to go. The crew had to be coaxed, bribed, and in some cases, pardoned criminals. Nothing screams trustworthy voyage like a crew of half-willing adventurers and ex-cons. By August 1492, he's finally ready. 3 ships: the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria set sail from Palos. Columbus, after nearly a decade of rejection, is now officially Admiral of the Ocean Sea, a title he gave himself, and then immediately started using like it was printed on his business cards. He's convinced he's going to reach Asia. He's wrong, of course, but he'll discover something far bigger. So if you ever feel like giving up because your idea sounds crazy, don't. This is Back in That Day, where we dig into history's greatest "how did this even happen" moments. And today, it's all about Cristopher Columbus, the man who couldn't take a hint from European royalty. So remember, Columbus was rejected for 7 years straight, funded by a queen fresh off a war, and backed by a monk and a treasurer. And somehow, he still ended up changing the world, mostly by accident. Cristopher Columbus. Proof that persistence pays off, even when your math doesn't. If you like this video, subscribe to help us grow. Thanks for watching.